Hello and welcome to this lesson about adding and subtracting integers. The learning target for this video is being able to add and subtract negative and positive numbers together. So core idea I want to get across at the very beginning is a very big idea for dealing with rational numbers. And that is negative signs, signs roughly can be translated to, or means, do the opposite. Means, there we go, do the opposite. So if we keep that in the back of our mind, negative signs mean do the opposite, that's going to help out a lot with adding and subtracting negative numbers. So let's take a look at some examples. Let's say we have something like 15 plus negative 6. In a situation like this negative sign here means that we're going to do the opposite. And so you might be asking, like, well, what are you going to do the opposite of? Well, we're going to do the opposite of this. So do the opposite of addition, which means this is 15 minus 6. And now this is probably an expression that you can do more easily. 15 minus 6, well, that's 9. That's a piece of cake. Second thing, let's go to another example. Let's say we had 15 minus negative 6. Well, the same idea applies. What we're going to do is, because of this negative sign here, we're going to do the opposite of that there. And so what this becomes is that two negatives back to back become addition. Let's write it like that. Become addition. And that's because instead of subtracting negative 6, we're going to add positive 6. And let's say that again. Instead of subtracting negative 6, we're going to do the opposite, which is adding positive 6. And so what we end up getting is 15 plus 6, which is 21. Okay? So again, this relies on the core idea. Negative signs mean do the opposite. 15 plus negative 6 is 15 minus 6. 15 minus negative 6 becomes 15 plus 6. And so what we can extract from this are a few more rules, a few different cases, if you will. First one we've already talked about. Back-to-back negatives, so back-to-back negative signs become a plus sign. Back-to-back negatives become a plus sign. So you gotta remember that one. Second one is what we do when we have two things when we have different signs. So we'll call it different signs. And what we do for the different signs is we take the difference between them. So take the difference, which means you make it a subtraction problem. So we take the difference of and I'm going to put this in quotes because it's not a technical term, the larger one and smaller one. Okay, and we keep the sign of the larger one. So let me explain that to you. Let's say we have something like negative 23 plus 12. What's that going to be? Well, what we have here, two different numbers with different signs. Negative 23 and 12. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the difference of the quote-unquote larger one. Well, which one of these has the bigger absolute value? Negative 23. So off to the side, I'm going to go 23 minus the other one, 12. This is going to help me quote-unquote crunch my numbers. So 23 minus 12, that's going to give me 11. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the sign of the quote-unquote larger one. Well, the larger one was 23. so if I have 23 of something and I'm going to add 12, I have negative 23, I'm going to add 12 to it, it's going to become a negative number. It's going to stay a negative number. So my answer will be negative 11. I just take that negative there, or that 11 that I got from crunching my numbers, finding the difference, put it there, but I make sure it has a negative sign on it because the larger one was negative. And then finally, the third case is when we have two negatives, not back to back. Back to back. And what we do in this one is we just add the numbers and make the result negative. So let's go back to our numbers we were using before. Let's say we have negative 23 minus 12. We have two negative signs, even though one of them is kind of acting as a minus sign. So we have a negative there and a negative there. What we're going to do is keep these signs, but we're going to just add the two numbers together. And the idea is, if we were on a number line, is that we're starting at negative 23 and we're going to go to the left 12 units. And so that's why we're going to add them, is because we're kind of, that will tell us how far we are from 0. So off to the side, I do 23 plus 12, and that gives me 35. So I know it's going to be 35, but because they're both negative, it'll be negative 35. Then, I just want to show you another look. This could be presented to you in a different way. It could be negative 12 minus 23, same idea. It could be negative 12 plus negative 23. So here we still have the two negative signs that we need, so 1, 2, but they're not back to back. Because if this was negative 12 minus negative 23, that's a different situation. So that doesn't count here. But again, if we have two negative signs, we will add the integers together, the absolute value of the integers, and then put a negative sign on the answer. So in a nutshell, that is adding and subtracting negative or integers. The three big things I want you to keep in mind is that if you see back-to-back negatives, it's going to become a plus sign. Okay, so 5 minus negative 3 is 5 plus 3. Next, if we have different signs, we take the difference of the larger one and of the smaller one, but keep the sign of the larger one. And finally, two negatives not back to back, you add the numbers and just make the result negative. Good luck with your homework and practice, and let me know if you have any questions.